Hello and welcome. My name is Rachel Patterson. I'm a witch and published author. I'm also High Priestess of the Kitchen Witch Coven and Elder at the Kitchen Witch Online School of Witchcraft. I'm very honoured to be able to talk at pagan events across the UK and also write for several magazines and along the pagan theme as well. Today, I wanted to talk about kitchen witchcraft. Now, although my basic training initially was in Wicca and also in Druidry, I have travelled many winding pathways along very different subjects and experiences and adventures along the way. So really, my witchcraft has ended up being more kitchen witchcraft, if you want to give it a label. I think it's kind of a mixture of wild witchcraft, hedge witchcraft, kitchen witchery, folk magic, all coming together to make my own personal pathway, which I think that's what witchcraft is about anyway, is making it personal to you. But kitchen witchcraft is really the core of my practice. So what makes a kitchen witch? I think it is essentially working from the kitchen, obviously. You work with magical food, you work with magical ingredients, whether it is cooking or making lotions and potions. But I think it also expands out to the garden. So I have my own little garden that I grow all sorts of things in, and I work magic with all of the items that I grow in the garden as well. I think kitchen witchcraft again it's more of an ideal. It's about using whatever you've got to hand. It's about using things, ordinary, everyday things, rather than spending lots of money on beautiful tools and items. And I have got those too, because, pretty things. But I think it is working magic with things that you have to hand. So although I have a beautiful cauldron, you could use an old casserole dish or an old metal bucket. If you use a magic wand, and I have some beautiful wands, but I tend to use my pointy finger, but you could use a wooden spoon. If you use an athe, you could use a vegetable peeler instead. It's about looking at things from a slightly different viewpoint and looking at the things in your home and the things in your garden and the things that you find when you're out walking and wondering what magic you can work with them. And it's about working magic in your home too. So a lot of us are busy. I am a working wife and mother. So my magic has to kind of work in with my everyday life. So you can do that again by thinking a little bit outside of the box, really. So when I am dusting or cleaning, I might be chanting in my head to get rid of negative energy. When I am vacuuming, I will do the same thing, visualizing any negative energy being sucked up into the vacuum as I clean. You can make magical floor washes with herbal tea bags. And again, chant when you're wiping down the kitchen surfaces or the window frames, or you can work your magic into your everyday actions. And that's quite specific to the kitchen as well, because you can work magic when you're cooking your food. When you're stirring something, if you stir it clockwise, then you're bringing in positive energy. If you stir it anti-clockwise, you are getting rid of negative energy. If you're peeling vegetables, you can peel potatoes, and as the peel falls off, you can visualize any negative energies or bad habits all falling off as you're peeling the potato. So it's about actions as well, and just having a little bit of think and thinking, what magical action does that reflect, and what can I bring in to my mundane life to make it magical? There are correspondences and references, and it just requires a little bit of thinking about it first, but it can all be brought together so that you live as a kitchen witch. I think a starting point, particularly if you work a lot of your magic in the kitchen or in the home as I do, is to clean. I'm really sorry. I know it's boring, but sometimes you've got to make like Snow White. If your house is very cluttered and if it's very dirty or dusty, or it is going to clog up the flow of energy. So I think as well as a matter of respect, particularly if you're working ritual or deity in your or with deity in your home, to have a bit of a spruce up first, just to keep it all so that the energy flows. I know it's just one of those things. With ingredients, a lot of my magic is focused on working with perhaps ingredients that you might not have thought of as magical before, just normal, usual ingredients that you find in your kitchen cupboards. But I do think that if you grow it locally, or if it's grown locally, if you can source it from your own garden, if you can source it from your local farmer's market, if it's grown in the local area or you've grown it yourself, it will have a slight edge because it's going to have a more personal magic to it. It's got a connection to you and where you live. I know that's not always possible if you don't have a garden, or if, for instance, I love to work with cinnamon, but I can't grow cinnamon in my back garden. So I do source items like that from my local Asian supermarket because they sell an amazing array of spices and herbs at really reasonable prices. However, if you can't source anything like that, if you can't grow anything, you can forage locally. And when I say forage, even if you live in a city, there are things that you can pick. Even the weeds that grow between the cracks in the pavement all have magical properties. But if you can't do that, the regular supermarket herbs and spices, absolutely fine for working magic with. I don't believe that all these ingredients should cost lots of money, and I will never order anything from across the other side of the globe. A, because it's not something that I'm familiar with and it's not connected to me or my area. But B, because of the flights, of the eco impact of it, of shipping it from the other side of the world. So think a little bit about what's local to you and what's sourced locally to you. One example, probably quite a well-known example, is smudging. Now, I do smudge my house, and I know it's traditional to do it with white sage, but I live in England, and white sage is not native to England. It doesn't grow very well over here. It doesn't really like the climate. But what I do grow is ordinary green garden sage, and it does exactly the same job. It cleanses, it purifies, and it's more local to me. Excuse me. It is more local and it is more personal. And what I actually tend to do is I take the sage and I add lavender and rosemary to it from my garden as well. So it brings in that personal connection as well. So that's what I'm saying when I mean use something that has a connection to you. Use stuff that is you are more familiar with. It works just as well because everything, absolutely every ingredient, plant, herb, tree, food ingredient from your cupboard has magical properties to it. And I would highly recommend you trust your intuition. That's a huge part of kitchen witchcraft, I think anyway, is trusting your intuition. So instead of looking things up or using something that you think or you've seen is right for that in magical intent, trust your intuition. Go and open your kitchen cupboard with that intent in mind and see what spice or herb jumps out at you. Go out into your garden or go for a walk and see what really jumps out at you, not literally, hopefully. And that will be the right thing for you. Excuse me. So it is about trusting your intuition and going with that gut feeling about what works for you. I also think eating seasonally is a big part of it. I love to cook. I love to bake, actually. So I'm always quite conscious of what's in season and what isn't. There are two reasons. Eating seasonally means that it will taste better. If it's in season, it's going to be packed full of flavour. If it's out of season, it won't taste of anything at all. And also there's the eco side of it again. If it is in season, then it's probably been grown locally. If it's out of season, then it will have been shipped across the country or across the world rather. And of course, if it's in season, it's going to be cheaper. It's going to be much cheaper to buy. So for me, there are a lot of reasons to eat seasonally. And it also helps you connect to the turning of the wheel. It'll help you connect to Mother Nature to know what plants, fruits and vegetables are in season, because that's her connection. That's Mother Earth providing for us. So you can connect to the turning of the wheel by knowing what ingredients are in season as well. So lots of positives for that, for eating seasonally. But as I say, every ingredient has magic. And I'm sure you're familiar with all of the traditional herbs that we use in magical workings. Sage, I've already mentioned, but basil and mugwort and all of the traditional herbs that we use. But what about the ones that you may not have thought of? So I am going to go through and show you some of the things that I use. I am going to be referencing one of my books, Kitchen Witch's World of Magical Food. It has got, I don't remember everything, it has got all of the references in it. So the first thing I'm going to look at is chilies. These are little round chilies, but I've got some chili flakes here as well. You can see those. Any kind of chilies, fresh chilies, dried chilies, chili powder, chili flakes, absolutely brilliant for magical workings. I think as well, they've got a big boost of power. So if you're working any spell work, you add a pinch of chili powder or some flaked chilies, and it will give that spell work a big boost of power. It's a sort of kick up the butt kind of magical ingredient to get your spell working faster and stronger. But chilies come in all kinds of varieties, and they're absolutely brilliant for magical workings. So they bring creativity, energy, power, protection, passion, and they're also really good for hex breaking. They are ruled by the planet of Mars, fiery planet, and they are the element of fire, and they are masculine. So they've got that real grr kind of boost of energy to them. You could pop a dried chili or two underneath your pillow to spice up your love life, or add it to a meal, have a spicy meal together to bring in that same passion. Sprinkle chili powder into medicine pouches and witches' bottles to bring in protection. And this also works for sprinkling it around the boundary of your home. If you work with hot foot powder, it's also one of the ingredients in that. You can eat them, you can use them in workings, you can dry them and hang them on strings around your home to bring in protection. They are a really, really good magical ingredient to work with to give anything a boost. And nice to eat as well if you like curries and spicy foods. And easy to keep and dry as well, and cheap and cheerful. They're actually easy to grow as well. So that's chilies. I mean, there's a huge amount of things here, but we'll go through a few of them, just a few that perhaps you might not have thought of. Some of you may start your day with this brown stuff, coffee. And it is a big energy boost for those coffee drinkers. You know that you can't start your day without your cup of coffee. But have you thought about working with it in magic? Coffee is absolutely brilliant for magical workings. It brings energy, it brings that boost of energy, but it also brings clarity of thought, clarity of a situation. And you can also use it for divination. You might be familiar with tea leaf reading. If you use proper coffee, not instant coffee, you can read the coffee grounds as well. So it's brilliant for divination. It is a pick-me-up. It is a wake-up drink. Apparently, we've been drinking it since around 800 AD. So it is quite a classic. It brings a magical and a practical boost of energy and clarity of thought. It's also another fire one, and it's also corresponds to the planet of Mars as well. But it's also got a water connection as well. So it's got that slight emotions connection to it as well. And it is feminine. It is a feminine element to it. It is really, really useful. You can use it for hex breaking and curse breaking in spells as well. You could add a drop of freshly brewed coffee to your bath water to help clear away illness. Add coffee beans to your incense blends. It also makes it smell nice, but it brings protection and it helps dispel negative energy in your home as well. I tend to use coffee beans for magical work because the instant, if it does get a little bit damp, you end up with a bit of a soggy mess. But you can use it. Instant coffee or coffee grounds, absolutely fine for working magic with. But it's an unusual ingredient, but one I think that perhaps is one of the ones that gets a bit overlooked because it is packed with magical power and very, very useful ingredient to use in any magical workings. And then to honey. I like to work with jar spells a lot, and honey is brilliant to work with. It comes in tubs and pots, but if you can get it in a jar, you can work jar magic with it as well, with jar spells, which is absolutely brilliant. But honey's fantastic. It brings happiness, healing, love, prosperity, passion, spirituality, and it's also got a really strong connection to the world of fairy. You can use it in all sorts of things. It makes excellent offerings to the gods, to the spirits, and to the fairy world. You can add a drop of honey to incense blends. It will help sweeten the mood. It works to bring an add of zing to your love life too. I tend to use a jar and then I've got the dregs in the bottom. And I keep it. I don't wash it out. I leave the dregs of the honey in the bottom because you can then add items to it to create it into a spell jar or a witch bottle. Add all sorts of other ingredients for your intent, and the honey works as a base for it. So really good if people have had an argument and you want to bring them back together. It's really good to sweeten the mood of any room or any person. It can also be used for prosperity jars or healing jars as well. Absolutely brilliant. It is really, really good. It's sticky, so it brings things together and it keeps things together. So actually really good for bindings and things as well. It's a water and an earth element, and it's feminine in gender. Really, really good for spell working, particularly in the jar form. One of my go-tos actually is one of my favorites. And while we're still on jars, I have here a jar of pickled onions. And again, when I get to the end of the jar, I save the jar with the dregs of the vinegar and little odd bits of onion in it, and you can work magic with it. You can make spells with the jar. Onions in particular are really, really good for magical use, for passion, funnily enough, and fertility. You probably don't want to go eating raw pickled onions before an important date, but they do work very well in fertility spells. And of course, with the pickled onions, you also have vinegar. And vinegar is really, really magical as well. And that is a fire energy. Another one ruled by Mars, another one ruled by the element of fire. And it brings a really good protection energy to it. So you can work a protection jar spell with the jar of pickled onions. Onions in particular, ruled again by Mars, got quite a few Mars, and fire, and this one's a masculine one. You can eat onions for physical and spiritual health and protection. It is packed with fertility, so if you're working any kind of fertility magic, drop some onion in there. The Egyptians also believed that onions absorbed negative energy and impurities, and they'd also use onions to swear oaths upon. So that's quite a good one too. But jar spells are brilliant. Literally, you leave the dregs of the ingredient in the bottom and then you add all your other ingredients on top, put the lid on, charge it with your intent, and you've got a ready-made spell or witch's bottle. So they're really, really useful. And what have we got next for you? We've done coffee, so let's have a look. We've done honey and we've done onions. We'll get there. Peanuts. Peanut butter. Favourite to go in a sandwich, but have you ever worked spells with it? Peanut butter jars, again, a jar spell. Absolutely brilliant. Don't have to wash it up. Leave the dregs of the peanut butter in the bottom and you've got the basis for a spell. Peanuts are a really, really strong masculine energy. They're also very good for prosperity. So this is excellent for a money jar to work money magic with. Ruled by the planet of Jupiter, it's an earth element and it is very masculine. It's got that real power to it, but really good for prosperity. Peanuts of all sorts are really good in prosperity spells. I wouldn't recommend adding spoonfuls of peanut butter to medicine pouches or anything like that, because that would be very sticky. But use the peanut butter in any kind of jar spells, and it brings that male energy, it brings that prosperity energy to it, and really, really useful for abundance of all kinds. Peanut butter. Very, very useful, and something that most people have in their kitchen cupboards. We all have it. The next one to look at, and there are quite a few in this. I make a lot of witches bottles, and the basis for them I use a lot is, I don't know if you can see that, rice. So rice, porridge oats, flour, lentils, anything that absorbs water can be used as the basis for absorbing negative energy. So if you've got a jar spell, or if you want to make a witch's bottle, use something like rice that soaks up water to soak up negative energy. Even if it's gone out of date, anything like that, flour, porridge oats, lentils, once it's gone out of date in your cupboard, don't throw it away, keep it for magical use. Rice in particular is absolutely brilliant for soaking up any kind of negative energy, but it's also really good for prosperity. It's thrown, or was traditionally thrown, at weddings to bring prosperity and fertility to the happy couple. So it is prosperity, fertility, protection, grounding and stability. And also, if you like to work with weather magic, it brings the rain. Ruled by the planet, the sun. It's got the element of earth and air with it, and it is a masculine energy. It is one of the 7 sacred grains. They were the grains responsible for keeping cultures and entire civilizations and mankind really alive. I use it a lot in prosperity spells to symbolize money. It also works really well, as I say, to soak up negative energy, but it brings protection as well. To add some money bringing oomph to your rice, it needs to come in contact with some sort of currency. So if you've got a jar of rice in your magical cupboard, just drop a couple of silver coins into it just to keep it there, so that it soaks up the intent of prosperity. And then you can use it after that. If you colour your rice with a few drops of green food colouring, that also increases the money-making energy of it. Keep a jar of rice near your front door. It's said to distract evil spirits, so they are compelled to stop in the doorway and count the grains of rice. Whether that actually, who knows? But that's a bit of folk magic, but it works. So it's always very good to keep a jar of rice by your doorway. Rice also makes a good grounding meal. It brings stability and comfort and that sort of leveling, grounding energy to it. So an ordinary, cheap and easily available ingredient, but it's packed full of a huge amount of magical energy. Rice, again, is one of my go-to ingredients to use. Another one that you'll hopefully be familiar with, this is tomato soup, but obviously fresh tomatoes, tinned tomatoes, any kind of form of tomato soup. And you can work magic with the tin the same as you would with a jar. Open the tin, use the contents, leave the little dregs in the bottom, and then you can add all sorts of other ingredients to it. And you've got a spell in a can, basically. It makes a nice container for spell work. But tomatoes are brilliant for love, passion, protection, and creativity. Ruled by the planet Venus, the element of water, and they are a really strong feminine energy. One of the folk names for tomatoes is love apple. You bring in colour magic with that as well, because you've got the red of passion and creativity there as well. They can be dried. I tend to use the seeds of tomatoes in spells because they're less squishy and a lot easier to work with. So tomato seeds are brilliant to add to any kind of spell work or incense blends. The tomato's sacred to Venus, to Aphrodite, and to Hera. So loads and loads of love magic in there. Keep a tomato on your windowsill to stop negative energy from entering your home. Eat tomatoes to inspire love and passion, but also creativity. So think about it next time you have your bowl of tomato soup or your tomato sandwich, because it brings all that kind of creative and love energy with it. From the humble tomato, something again that we all have in our cupboards. And another little spell that I like to work with, this is vanilla extract. For anybody that bakes cakes, you will always have a bottle of vanilla extract or vanilla flavouring in your cupboards. These bottles are fantastic to work magic with once you've finished making all your cakes, because that's important. Once you've finished with the bottle, don't wash it out. Leave the dregs of the vanilla inside it, because vanilla packs a huge magical punch as well. Also very nice to add the extract to incense blends because it does smell nice, or a few drops on the top of a candle works very well with vanilla. But it brings a lot of magic. It's love, it's spirituality. It can be used in sex magic, passion, and creativity. Ruled by the planet Venus, unsurprisingly. It is water and air and a very feminine energy. But the seeds are bizarre, actually. They come from the orchid family. Seeds are scraped from the vanilla pod and actually put into alcohol to make the extract. I like to drop a vanilla pod into my tub of sugar as well to keep, because it flavours it and brings a bit of extra magic. It can be used to increase love and happiness, whether you put it in your cooking or in your spell work. The vanilla bean also helps to increase your spirituality and your connection to a higher level of consciousness. That in particular, if you're meditating with a vanilla scented candle, is absolutely spot on. But again, if you've just got an ordinary, just plain tea light, add a couple of drops of vanilla extract and it will give that vanilla scent. It can be used as well to spark your imagination and your creativity. So lots and lots of ordinary ingredients can be used to make magic. You don't have to spend loads of money. You don't have to buy lots of fancy ingredients or even containers to work your magic in, or fancy candles or anything. Kitchen Witchcraft is all about working magic with what you have to hand. So just a simple jar, an empty jar from your kitchen, and then you can add. So for a honey spell, to sweeten the energy in a home, I would use a honey jar with the little dregs of the honey in, and then I'd add all sorts of other ingredients, a bit of vanilla, some rice to soak up negative energy. I might add some cinnamon to bring about success and love. Rose petals, really good as well, because rose petals bring peace and happiness and love. And layer it up. Just layer it up in the jar until I felt that it had enough ingredients in it. Charging each ingredient as I went, saying out loud what intent I want them for. Pop the lid on. Charge the jar as a whole, and then you could just pop it in the corner of your home or in under a cupboard or a table or somewhere in your house, so that it can just work its magic, making the energy in the home sweeter. And there you've worked magic with ingredients that you've just got in your kitchen cupboards. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive, but real kitchen witchcraft. So I encourage you to open your kitchen cupboards or to look in your garden. I don't have a huge garden, but I pack it full of all sorts of things. Everything that I like, that I think is pretty or colourful. Every flower, every leaf, every seed pod gets saved, and every single one of them has a magical intent to it. So I can use those in my magic. Everything, even a simple blade of grass, has magical properties, and all of those can be used to work your kitchen witchcraft. And not just spell work. Work it when you are cooking, when you're making meals for your friends or your family. Put that intent in. put the happiness and the love and the friendship intent, and then put ingredients in that align with that intent. So there's hundreds of things that you can add. Let's have a look at some of the friendship. They are, if you want to bake a cake to bring friendship between you and a person or a group of people, add some lemon. Lemon is really, really good for friendship and bringing friendship. Passion fruit is the same. That's really good for bringing friendship. If you've got someone that's poorly and you want to bring some healing into your cooking, all sorts of things for that. Bay is really good for healing. Cinnamon, coriander, fennel, garlic, ginger, gravy, really good. Maple syrup, really good for healing. Rosemary, pumpkin, potato, pineapple, all have that healing magic to them. So if someone's not feeling very well, make them something with the intent of bringing healing to them by adding your intent while you're making it, but by adding associated ingredients in to bring about that healing. It is all about the magic of the ingredients. For love, if you're having a romantic dinner, put that energy in while you're actually making the food, obviously, but you can add specific ingredients that bring about love. Apples, cardamom, cherry, chocolate, cinnamon, kiwi fruit, limes, mangoes, maple syrup again, passion fruit, obviously, pears, plums, raspberries, rosemary, sugar, obviously, because that makes everything sweeter. Vanilla and wine is always a good one as well. Drinking a glass of wine will definitely improve the mood. So it is all about thinking about the ingredients and thinking about the intent of anything that you're doing or you're making in the kitchen, from cooking your meals to cleaning the house to working spells. It can all be brought together cheaply and easily by trusting your intuition and using whatever ingredients you have to hand. So have a look around your house, have a look around your garden, and definitely check out your kitchen cupboards to work some magic.